What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Average Joe Investor channel. My name is Joe, and on this channel we talk exclusively on how to help the average Joe go from being just average financially to becoming financially independent. In today's video, guys, we are covering the first of what I think will be many different dividend ETF videos where we'll talk about what these investments are, how do they work, why I am invested in them, or why I'm not. Today we are talking about the Vanguard High Yield Dividend ETF. VYM. Specifically in this video, we're going to talk about exactly what this ETF is, how does it work, what index is it based off of, what the underlying holdings are, what the dividend yield looks like, what the dividend growth rate looks like. And then I'll let you know whether I'm invested in this ETF or not, and why. You guys know I never want to waste your time, and I always want to deliver massive value with every single video that I make. So without further delay, let's get started. Confession time. There are times when you have to sacrifice a little bit as a father, as a husband. This is real big news, and I do feel obligated to share it with you because, well, honestly, you're gonna find out anyways. My daughter made a pretty significant request, and I started out, on the fence. Well, one thing led to another, and that's right, I have Christmas red painted fingernails. But you know what? I'm rocking it. I'm making this video and the next one with red nails. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dive in here. What exactly is the Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF? Well, it's a dividend ETF, but more specifically, it's a passively managed dividend ETF, meaning you do not have a portfolio manager actively making buy and sell decisions on a daily basis. It's based off of an underlying index of dividend stocks, specifically the FTSE High Dividend Yield Index, which measures the investment return of common stocks, blah, 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 by high dividend yields. As customary with any type of Vanguard index fund, we have an expense ratio that is ultra low at 0.06%. That is the equivalent of $6 for every $10,000 invested in the ETF. Current price per share as of December 17th, 2021, $109.93 per share. As you can plainly see, this is a very diversified ETF. There are 410 different dividend stocks in the portfolio. The top 10 largest holdings in this ETF of the 410 make up 24.20% of the total net assets. You probably recognize every single company on the top 10 list: JP Morgan Chase, Home Depot, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, Bank of America. These are all quality companies, very large companies, and many of them, especially when you think about Chase and Procter & Gamble, these companies have long-standing dividend policies. They have a track record of paying consistent dividends year over year and increasing that dividend every single year. And if you go down this list past the top 10, it doesn't change the fact that these are still high-quality companies: AbbVie, Verizon, Coca-Cola, Walmart, Intel, Wells Fargo, Merck, McDonald's. All these companies, really strong dividend companies. Now, I did a ton of research into the FTSE High Dividend Yield Index, and I had a very difficult time finding any specific data in the prospectus, online. So I'm sorry I couldn't give you more information there, but what you can plainly see is that the portfolio of dividend stocks in this ETF are high quality and very diversified. Let's talk a little bit more about performance, specifically dividend performance. The Vanguard High Dividend Yield ETF has a strong dividend history. If we go over here on Seeking Alpha, we can see that their dividend yield right off the bat for the trailing 12 months right here is 2.82%. And their dividend growth rate is also very stable. Over the trailing 12 months, 6.54% year-over-year growth. The 3-year compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, 5.33%. 5-year CAGR, 7.01%, and 10-year CAGR, 8.84%. It has raised its dividend every single year for 11 consecutive years and has been paying dividends consecutively for 14 years. And that dividend is paid out quarterly, with the most recent dividend amount being 94 cents a share. Now, I know what you're thinking here. High yield dividend ETF, why is it yielding only 2.82%? I don't have a great answer for you. It's not. I mean, it's called the High Dividend Yield ETF, and it's based on a high yield index, but I don't consider this to be a high yield dividend ETF. With respect to dividend growth, it's respectable. I would consider any ETF that can consistently raise their dividend by at least the amount of inflation. Of course, we've talked about inflation. We know that that's a number that's hard to truly define in as far as actual dollar increases. You can see historically back over the past 5 to 10 years, year over year growth, 6%, 2%, 7%, 10%, 8%, 2% again here, 12.63%, 9 and 9. This is a very respectable growth rate for this dividend ETF. With respect to total returns, incorporating both price performance as well as the dividend payments, the 1-year average annual return 22.2%, 3-year average return 10.67% every year, 5-year return 10.84%, 10-year return 12.6%, and since inception in 2006, 8.39%. With respect to a comparison to the S&P 500 index, again on a total return basis, you can see that it performed pretty much dollar for dollar about the same. However, since COVID happened here in March of 2020, you can see that the S&P 500 has clearly outperformed this index. So my own personal thoughts here on the Vanguard High Yield Dividend ETF. Is it an ETF that I'm invested in? No, it's not. But that's for a few specific reasons, some of which are relevant to you and probably some of them are not. I think we can all agree, like I mentioned previously, that even though it calls itself a high yield dividend ETF, it doesn't exactly make you a high yield dividend ETF. And at a yield of less than 3%, you have no business calling yourself a high yield dividend ETF. That's one of the big reasons why I'm not invested in VYM. Additionally, while their dividend growth rate is reasonable, I really am targeting within my core portfolio dividend growth rates that are exceeding 10% year over year. Not necessarily with every single holding, but if I'm going to put a portion of my money into an ETF, I want that ETF to be more growth oriented with respect to its dividend. It's also not a great fit for my dividend investing strategy right now, which I think is probably a little bit unique. I definitely have 3 different segments. I've got my core segment, I have my high yield segment, and then I have my options trading segment of the portfolio. Now, it definitely doesn't fit into the high yield segment of the portfolio. It could potentially fit into my core segment of the portfolio, and maybe it will in the future. The dividend yield is acceptable at 2.82%, but it's got to have a much stronger dividend growth rate to fit into the portfolio at that level. For example, I've got Avgo in my portfolio. Individual dividend stock, I think it's actually in VYM as well. It's got a growth rate exceeding 10%. That's really what I'm targeting if I'm going to have a lower yield. I went ahead and broke out the VYM holdings into a spreadsheet, and I wanted to see how many of the holdings actually were part of my monthly dividend stock spreadsheet, all the stocks that have been raising their dividend for at least 5 consecutive years, every single year. And I found that of the 410 different holdings, only 251, right here, 251 of them were actually on my spreadsheet as a recurring dividend raiser. Of those 251, the average dividend yield was about 3.01%, not a weighted average, just the 251, the average. We also included VYM previously in the dividend ETF video from last week, and we found that over the course of 3 different investing strategies here, it only performed well amongst all the 14 different dividend ETFs in 2 separate strategies over 10 years, with the lump sum plus monthly strategies on the annual dividend amounts right here and right here. Otherwise, it was not in the top 3 amongst any of the different dividend ETFs across any of these different dividend strategies. Now, that doesn't mean that VYM cannot be a good fit for your portfolio. If you're looking for a dividend yield that's going to exceed what you would get with just owning the S&P 500, you want some of that dividend income, but you, like I said, also want safety and stability, then VYM might be a great fit. Again, we're going to be covering all of these different dividend ETFs over the next few months, and I want to make sure you guys leave your feedback, leave your 2 cents down in the comments below. Let me know which dividend ETFs you'd like to see a video about next. Also, make sure to leave your 2 cents in the comments below about this video. What were some aspects about this ETF you wanted to hear more about that I missed out on, so that way future videos are much better for you guys. That's all I got for you guys in this video. Have a great rest of your day, and please continue to stay healthy, both physically and financially. Have a good one.